From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Tonight, Minister of Education breaks silence on the ongoing warning strike by ASUU, raises hope that all issues are being considered and agreements will be reached soon. Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Abba Kyari, explains the importation of toxic fuel, which causes scarcity of petrol across the country, says it was not deliberate. Embattled DCP Abba Kyari may be arraigned in court in a couple of days over alleged involvement in drug deals. And also directed its commanders to draw up details for deployment of forces in response to Russia's military presence around Ukraine's borders. Plus, international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, the National Sugar Development Council announces new import quota allocation for sugar operators in the country.
On sports news tonight, Edo State government announces the return of the Okpekpe 10-kilometer road race after a 2-year break owing to COVID-19.
And from Abuja, Michael Zekome, counsel to prescribed leader of IPOB, raises alarm over his client's health, tells the courts that Nnamdi Kanu is going blind.
3 days after the one-month warning strike declared by the Academic Staff Union of Universities commenced, the federal government says it is ready to conclude its dialogue with the university lecturers. Breaking his silence on the issue, the Minister of Education, Adamu, expressed surprise over the union's decision to embark on a strike, explaining the government is still waiting for them to resolve the outstanding issues. According to the minister, there's a solution to the protracted crisis. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, reports.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibaju, presides over the week's Federal Executive Council meeting with 8 ministers in the chamber and the others attending virtually. Among the diverse and critical issues, the one-month warning industrial action embarked upon by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, came to the fore. The Minister of Education tells State House correspondents that he is looking for ASUU.
ASUU, unfortunately, they have gone on strike, and I'm just looking for them because all the issues are being addressed. The last thing that happened was the committee that looked at their demands, the renegotiation that is going on, and they submitted a draft agreement which the ministry is looking at. The committee is looking at it. Immediately it finishes, the government will announce what it has accepted of that. Then suddenly I had them going on strike. So I'm looking for us.
He reacts to several allegations by ASUU, some of which is that the minister has consistently shunned negotiation meetings and that the federal government does not want a peaceful resolution to the crisis. The minister denies them all.
I always call the meeting myself. The meeting that I didn't attend was when I was in hospital in Germany. Because the federal government is ready to meet them on all the issues they have raised. And if there are so many meetings and then the gap is not closing, I think it's not the fault of government.
In the back and forth, the minister equally responded to questions on whether or not the government can advance an agreement with the university lecturers before the end of the 30-day warning strike.
There is a solution. The negotiation that has been going on is the solution. And that is why I told you I'm so surprised that ASUU has gone on strike. I'm ready to reach agreement with ASUU now. But since I'm not the only one, I can't give you time. But certainly we are going to reach agreement and it will be very soon.
The Education Minister further defended the dissimilar cut-off marks for Southern and Northern prospective common entrance admission candidates for unity schools, which appear discriminatory. Mr. Adamu explains that the arrangement is in line with the federal character principle and nothing can be done about it. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
University students are already feeling the impacts of the strike by ASUU, and in University of Benin in Edo State, the students staged a protest, maintaining that they're tired of incessant strikes in the university system. They called on the federal government to expedite action by responding swiftly to the demands of the lecturers and to perform the agreement reached with ASUU. Our correspondent Osazo Baze reports.
Drivers caught in the gridlock created by the barricades erected by the protesting University of Benin students. The Lagos-Benin Expressway normally experiences very heavy traffic as an interstate access to the southwest of Nigeria. The students are on the third as they ask the federal government to meet the demands of ASUU.
We need revitalization in our educational system. Most of our labs are stocked with old facilities. We need modern facilities to measure up with the people with other universities outside the country. So we need the federal government to sort whatever issue they are having with ASUU, with the university union, so that we can go back peacefully to our classroom and graduate as at when we are supposed to graduate.
The university authorities appealed for calm, worried that the protest could be hijacked by miscreants.
My appeal is, we don't want other people to hijack it. If you look around now, we can identify some Uniben students. Maybe not everybody here is a Uniben student.
The ASUU Uniben branch, on the flip side, wants well-meaning Nigerians to wade in by appealing to the federal government to save public universities in the country.
ASUU appears to be the last man standing. Once ASUU falls, public education, especially university education, will crumble in this country. So we are calling on everyone, apart from the students, everyone else should come out and prevail on the government and compel them to honor a simple agreement that they entered into with the union.
The students have finally opened the inbound route to allow travelers from Lagos end to gain access to Benin City. They insist today's protest is a mere warning. It continues tomorrow. Osazo Baze Channels Television News.
The latest industrial action embarked upon by the Academic Staff Union of Universities over salaries and welfare can best be described as ominous for students who had been hoping that the year 2022 would be without interruption to their academic activities. This report looks at the back and forth between both the federal government and the union, which is threatening the education sector.
The federal government has always maintained that education remains a top priority. But how believable is that in the minds of those seeking to finish without interruptions to their schedule? Those at the receiving end are university students who face several agonizing months at home.
It is so confusing to us to actually find out the truth between the federal government and the ASUU. Because from the both side of the argument, if you hear all of them, each side are claiming to be on the right path.
As a 400 level student, I don't think this is coming. It's not a good factor for me.
Since its inception in 1978, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has interfaced with the federal government over or on issues relating to salaries and welfare of lecturers. It's a long-drawn crisis that dates back to 2009. The federal government and ASUU's agreement over demands which include funding for revitalization of public universities, earned academic allowances, visitation panel reports, promotion arrears, and proliferation of state universities, among others.
So this year has been on since 2009. An agreement was signed in 2020 MOA. I will call off a strike. Until now, nothing significant has happened. So one will expect that if you have given such a plea and handed over this responsibility to 3 of your ministers and the chief of staff, that by now would have begun to see some action.
After ASUU's 9-month strike in 2020 over these issues, there were several meetings with the Minister of Labour and Employment, the leaders of the National Assembly, and President Muhammadu Buhari.
In briefing members of ASUU, it is important that you share with them that government regards them and the service they provide to our nation very highly. However, they should be cognizant of the fiscal pressures that we are currently facing. Nonetheless, we remain committed to honoring our promises.
An end to the seemingly endless battle between the federal government and ASUU will most likely come when both parties agree on what they consider as priorities and for the benefit of students who bear the brunt of frequent strikes.
Away from the ASUU strike, there are strong indications that the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, will be in court in the next couple of days over his involvement in a 25-kilogram cocaine deal. A source close to the investigations told Channels Television that the NDLEA is putting finishing touches to filing its case against Abba Kyari and others arrested with him. Meanwhile, the agency says it has no intention of hiding any form of information relating to the ongoing investigation, even as it releases more information on the case. In a statement released today, the agency explains. According to the police investigation report, ASP James Bauer, in his statement to the police, reveals that he was called by an informant identified as Ike from Brazil, who told him that a drug courier will be arriving on board Ethiopian Airlines in Enugu. The statement further explains that a pointer from Ike, the Brazil-based informant, met with him at about 2:20 p.m. on January 19, 2022, outside the airport and showed him a picture of the courier. Subsequently, they cited the suspect as he exited the airport terminal after all arrival clearance formalities, and he was arrested with another associate. The arrest and subsequent handover of the suspended police officer and former head of the IGP IRT unit, Mr. Abba Kyari, has continued to generate interest, being a highly respected cop known for his distinction in bursting high-profile criminal syndicates. In this next report, our correspondent, Olu Phillips, examines the records and travails of the man known by some as the Super Cop.
Is this really happening? Or there's a mix-up somewhere? Is perhaps the contemplation by some, and maybe a sit back and watch what this whole story of Abba Kyari being linked to a cocaine deal is all about. Well, whichever side of the coin it is for you, certain facts are currently incontrovertible. A once well-decorated police officer, branded in some quarters as a super cop, honored at several fora and many more for what he has come to be known for as that one police officer who has solved the puzzle of intriguing and difficult crimes, mostly around kidnapping and murder, has been arrested and in the custody of another anti-crime agency. We are talking about Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari. From the time he got enlisted into the Nigerian police force and got posted to Adamawa, later to Lagos, and up until joining the IGP Intelligence Response Team, IRT, it was an upward trajectory for him, almost a 22-year stainless service. Abba's troubles started in the last few months when the Federal Bureau of Investigation indicted him following allegations that he facilitated payments to Nigerian police personnel from Instagram celebrity Ramon Abbas, also known as Hush Puppy, which eventually led to his suspension from the Nigerian police and from his position as the head of Intelligence Response Team by the Police Service Commission in August 2021. For the rest of the year 2021 and January 2022, it did appear like nothing was going to happen as regards the extradition request to the US, and not much was heard or seen as an outcome of the investigation by a government institution. On a possible outcome of the investigation and prosecution of the Super Cop over his involvement with Hush Puppy, currently in the U.S. custody, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice had this to say.
So there's a possibility of extradition.
There could be a need or perhaps the possibility of making such requests, and they are looking into it.
Was there a request for extradition?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the parties are discussing, the parties are collaborating, and then there are exchange of correspondence from the perspectives of investigation, from the perspectives of extradition and associated things.
Is this new discovery a tee-off from the vagaries of extradition, or will a local prosecution utterly jettison his alleged exposure to Hush Puppy?
The Extradition Act is in existence, and it says clearly that once the person who is subject of the request for extradition is facing trial in the local jurisdiction, you cannot He has to go through that process. So if Abba Kyari is charged to court by NDLA or the Nigeria police, that is the end of the extradition for now.
Many didn't see the latest event coming. First, NDLEA declared him wanted for attempting to siphon part of a cocaine haul, and just hours after that, he was arrested along with 4 other officers, Sunday Ubua, Bawa James, Simon Agrigba, and John Huhu.
We are not unaware of threats to the lives of NDLEA officers involved in this investigation, even as we continue to do our best to protect our officers and men in the line of duty.
Before his current travels, Abba Kyari was a well-decorated cop who had busted more than 80 criminal gangs and kidnappers, including the arrest of alleged Nigeria's most notorious kidnap kingpin, Chukwudimeme Onwamadike, also known as Evans. So what really happened? For now, his competencies are not in doubt. What is on trial is his character. The outcomes in the days ahead will definitely be an open book. Will competency match character? Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, fuel scarcity persists in parts of the country as NNPC admits makes up in the importation of toxic fuel. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Minister of Education raises hope that issues raised by ASUU are being considered and agreements will be reached soon. Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Abba Kyari, explains the importation of toxic fuel which caused the scarcity of petrol across the country, says it was not deliberate. DCP Abba Kyari may appear in court in a couple of days of alleged involvement in drug deals. And NATO tasked its commanders to draw up details for deployment of forces in response to Russia's military presence around Ukraine borders. And now to the lingering fuel crisis. The GMD of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Abba Kyari, says before the end of the month, 2.1 billion litres of PMS, free of methanol, would have been injected into the system. Mr. Kyari also stated that the importation of the off-spec EMS was not deliberate, adding that the distribution of premium motor spirits will normalize in the weeks ahead. He was speaking during an interaction with the House Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating the circumstances surrounding the importation of the adulterated fuel into the country.
By no means, Honorable Chairman, we are a very law-abiding company. There is no one out there to bring this product into this country deliberately. There is no way we would have seen this methanol except your supplier decides to disclose to you. There is simply no way because it's not part of your requirement to look for this, including our DSTP customers who supplied us this, except their supplier tells them there is no way they will know. There are 2 reasons that will make you put methanol into this product. And probably your investigation may reveal this. I don't know what it will come up with. But I know for sure that some may blend it as a matter of regulatory requirement as you have in Europe, and some also you can do it for commercial reasons. 8 months ago, it is impossible for anyone to blend methanol into gasoline destined for Nigeria because methanol is typically more expensive than naphtha, which is used for blending gasoline. But in current situation, there's a price differential that makes methanol a little cheaper than naphtha, which will make suppliers typically will blend and they will get commercial value from it.
While the NNPC steps up measures to restore normalcy in the distribution of PMS, Nigerians have continued to lament the impact of the fuel scarcity in many parts of the country. Our next report is an update on the situation across the country. It's the second week of the fuel scarcity occasioned by the off-spec premium motor spirit, which the federal government says it is investigating. The queues are yet to go away in many parts of Lagos State, the nation's commercial nerve center. Motorists waste no time voicing their frustration with the long hours spent at the queues.
We don't even know. Talk less of you want to buy it, so even though there was an accident that happened there, people burned with their car because of the pipe petrol inside their car. This isn't supposed to be like that. Today, at Bagada side.
While vehicles join the lineup to get served, there's another queue, people holding their jerry cans. But they're not finding it easy to get the product.
And please, I'm soliciting, let them sell these kegs, I beg you. The children did not sleep until when? When in the morning, NEPA guys what do they call their name? Co one-to-one distribution, whatever. Ikeja, whatever, they'll be doing rubbish, no lights. So now we come through this struggle to get fuel, and now we can't buy the keg, please.
Since 3 weeks now, there's no light in my 12. That is the reason why I see many people, they are carrying keg up and down to look for the fuel because of the generator.
Some other filling stations are not even selling the product. From the south to the north, it's the same experience. The long queues in Kaduna, northwest Nigeria. Motorists have to keep up with the queues, and those who can't use the alternative, the black market, but that at a price.
My car was in the line. Up to now, I did not get the fuel. Even when you go to black market, we do buy gallon, 2,000 naira. 1 liter, 1,000 naira.
The brunt is borne by all, including these commuters who cannot come to terms with the new transportation fare.
On a good day, like in the afternoon, it's 100 naira. Or this evening, they are telling me 200 naira.
In Taraba, northeast of the country, it's the same story. Long queues. Just as in many other states, many of the fuel stations are under lock and key. Black marketers are taking advantage of the situation, plying their trade. In spite of the obvious long queue, motorists here say things are looking up. But things are different in Delta State. No queues, and the product is sold at the approved pump price. It's the same mood in Cross River State. Everyone enters and leaves the station in minutes. Government is aware of this and has promised to fix things very soon.
To address the situation, over 2.3 billion litres will arrive the country between now and end of February 2022.
What many motorists look forward to now is that this promise translates to the clearance of difficulty in getting petrol with the usual ease they've become used to. Let's toss it over now to Linda in Abuja. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. And now to legal matters. Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court, Abuja, will on April the 8th rule on the preliminary objection filed by the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. Mr. Kanu is challenging the validity of the 15-count amended charge preferred against him by the federal government. The trial judge fixed a date after Kanu's counsel, Mr. Michael Zekome, said the prosecution, Mr. Shuaibu Laboran, adopted arguments for and against the defendant's preliminary objection. Michael Zekome also raised alarm over his client's health, telling the court that Kanu is going blind.
The street leading to the Federal High Court Abuja is busy once again ahead of the hearing of the fresh amended 15-count charge bordering on treasonable felony filed by the federal government against the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. However, by noon, the streets were taken over by security operatives. An order by the trial judge, Justice Binta Nyako, to allow other judges hear their cases before the stipulated time for Kanu's case. Mr. Nnamdi Kanu arrives at the courtroom in high spirits, wearing the same outfit which the court had ordered the Department of State Services to allow him change. He exchanges pleasantries with family members and the legal team. At the resumed trial, Mr. Kanu's counsel, Mr. Michael Zekome, told the court that he had two applications. One was seeking to dismiss the 15-count amended charge for being incompetent, baseless, and for want of jurisdiction to entertain the charge, and another for bail. He also complained that his client may lose his sight if his glasses aren't returned to him. He further bemoaned that despite an order of the court, the Department of State Services has declined to allow the indigenous people of Biafra leader to have a change of clothing.
I've directed Ifeanyi Ejiofor to provide other clothes for him that do not have the motif of a lion or a tiger. So it could be another designer wear if he has another one, because he has been using one cloth since June last year. That is not good for any human being. The repetitiveness alone is itself a problem.
Responding to the court's question on why Nnamdi Kanu still wore the same outfit, the Director of Legal at the Department of State Services told the court that Nnamdi Kanu's family members brought a cloth with a lion's heart, which offends their operational standards. The prosecuting counsel insists they are fully ready to see the case to its logical conclusion.
All the counts in this charge requires no any effort. It is one charge that within a twinkle of an eye, if the trial is allowed to continue, it will be concluded within record time. And we are optimistic that this honorable court will do justice.
Nnamdi Kanu had requested that he adorn his ishago and Igbo attire to court, a request which was turned down by the trial judge, Justice Bintanyako.
Outside the country, the president has presided over a strategic meeting with members of his delegation ahead of the EU-African Union summit in Brussels, Belgium. President Muhammadu Buhari will be joining European and other African leaders, as well as heads of multilateral organizations, for the 8th EU-AU meeting, which holds tomorrow, February the 17th and 18th. The leaders are expected to discuss financing for sustainable and inclusive growth, climate change and energy transition, as well as digital and transport, among other issues. Still ahead on the news at 10, the National Sugar Development Council announces new import quota allocation scheme for sugar operators in the country. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. To the National Assembly. Following a motion of urgent national importance by the minority leader Ndudi Elumelu, the House of Representatives has mandated its Committee on Reformatory Institutions to investigate the state of the Nigerian Correctional Service. The House is worried that the working conditions of staff have deteriorated and that the arms units of the service still parade substandard weapons despite ₦1 billion budget provision in the 2020-2021 budget. Correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
When the Nigerian Correctional Service Bill was signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari on 15th of August 2019, there were hopes of an improved prison system to reduce overcrowding and improve the infrastructure as well as security of the prisons. Over 2 years after, not much of an improvement has been made. Instead, an unprecedented number of jailbreaks has been witnessed in the past 2 years. This was caused by a number of factors, including structural defects, poor security features, shortage of armed personnel and weapons required to guard the facilities. This is a concern for the minority leader of the House of Representatives.
The House is therefore worried that working conditions of staff and inmates' welfare have deteriorated, notwithstanding the over 165 billion budget allocations to the service in the last 2 years. The House therefore observed that the armed squad unit of the service still parade obsolete and substandard weapons, despite over 1 billion budget provision for prison biometrics, arms and ammunition in the 2020-2021 capital budget.
In November last year, the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, revealed that since October 2020, 4,860 inmates had escaped from Nigerian prisons following 6 successful jailbreaks. The UNODC in 2015, after an assessment of 36 Nigerian prisons, made a key recommendation, which was the need to take urgent measures that would help reduce the number of awaiting trial inmates as a way of reducing congestion in Nigerian prisons. The Correctional Service Law places emphasis on rehabilitation and reintegration, and this must be properly implemented to reduce the crime rate in the country when inmates are eventually released into the society. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Staying with the legislature, but to health matters, the Senate has directed its committees on health, primary health care and works to investigate the abandoned 400 billion naira National Primary Health Center project initiated by the administration of former President Olusegun Obasanjo in 2006. A federal lawmaker, Senator Ibrahim Oluriegbe, in a motion during today's plenary session, said the project involves the construction of national primary health centers in each of the 774 local government areas in the country. He further explains that to implement this project, the federal government deducted monies from the excess crude account of all the 774 local government areas monthly, but majority of the centers were never constructed.
The Senate is aware that the bill of quantities for the project was prepared by the then Federal Minister of Works and Housing and approved by the Bureau of Public Procurement. The Senate further aware that despite all those professional pre-contract activities, the contract for the execution of the project in the entire 774 local government area in the country was awarded to Messrs. Matans Nigeria Limited without any known tendering and selection process. The Senate observed that Messrs. Matans Nigeria Limited proceeded and subcontracted out the job to consultants and subcontractors without any verification of capacity and capability to properly execute the jobs and without the consent of the government or its agencies involved in. The Senate accordingly resolved to mandate its Committee on Health and Primary Health Care and Communicable Disease to undertake an investigation in order to determine the status of the 100% project fund warehouse with the then Bank PB, now Crystal Bank, determine the level of progress and status of the project in each of the 774 local governments, carry out evaluation of the consultants, contractors, and subcontractors that participated in the project, carry out a schedule of dilapidation of the project, and recommend ways of completing this very important project nationwide.
We're not done yet with the management of the nation's health system. A coalition of civil society groups in Abuja is asking the government to set up an independent panel to audit the way resources allocated for COVID-19 were utilized by the various ministries and agencies of government involved in managing the pandemic. Speaking at a joint news conference in Abuja, the founder of Connected Development, Mr. Hamza Lawal, says the way monies and other resources meant for the pandemic were spent is shrouded in secrecy, as most inquiries regarding spendings by the group are not responded to.
Into the project. Thank you so much, and all the best to you all.
I just dropped a message on the sit-down now. Okay, so that's joining us. I see Hassan is there.
And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Well, no fewer than 22 people have been killed, abducted, beg your pardon, by suspected bandits who attacked Idom town in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State. The attackers also reportedly injured 4 residents of the community during an operation that took place in the early hours of today. Although both the security agencies and the Kaduna State government are yet to comment on the incident, a community leader who did not want his name mentioned told Channels Television that the bandits invaded the community located along the Kaduna-Kachia Road at about 12:30 a.m. and immediately started shooting indiscriminately while residents were fast asleep. A source said the bandits took 22 people away to an unknown destination, while those who sustained injuries were taken to hospital for treatment. And at least 8 people are said to have been killed after gunmen invaded the newly relocated abattoir cattle market located in Umumazo community in Ukwa West local government area of Abia State. The attack, which occurred in the early hours of today, was said to have lasted over an hour. An eyewitness account has it that the gunmen, numbering over 20, also killed about 70 cows, with other property worth thousands of naira destroyed at the market. The attack comes barely 1 week after Governor Okezie-Ikpeazu announced the relocation of the abattoir market to the Umumazo community. The state government has condemned the incident, explaining in a statement that it has mobilized various security agencies to secure the lives and property of the traders and fish out the assailants. It also adds that government officials are working to provide succor to families of the victims, while those who sustained injuries are currently receiving medical attention. A federal lawmaker is urging the Senate to intervene in the communal clashes involving Iza people of Otokolado local government area of Benue State and Umbo community of Ohauku local government area of Ebonyi State. Senator Abba Moro says the clashes have led to the deaths of 31 people and the destruction of property in communities. He wants the federal government to provide more security personnel in the communities to prevent further bloodshed.
Only recently, 2 attacks were carried on the people of Eza, of Ado local government, in which 9 and 22 persons were killed and houses razed and properties destroyed. Mr. President, as I'm making this explanation, virtually all Eza people have deserted their ancestral home. And so, Mr. President, I want to ask again for Senate's intervention. 1, to produce security for our people. I want to ask that the Defense Ministry can order, for the moment that the lives of the people are in danger, for a security base in Ikiri, the center, the epicenter of this current crisis. Because they come in their droves, attack and go back. And the people of Eza are harmless, law-abiding citizens. Up to this moment, Mr. President, I also want to explain that, as part of Senate's intervention, no relief and rehabilitation materials have been provided for the Eza people. And up to this moment, like I said, our people are vulnerable to attack. They're asking for nothing more than to provide security.
Let's switch gears now to business news. Here's Teniola Shobuwale.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Amarachi. Welcome to Business News. The Executive Secretary of the National Sugar Development Council, Mr. Zach Adedeji, says operators in the nation's sugar industry will now receive raw sugar import quota based on quarterly performance in the implementation of the Backward Integration Program. Speaking at a meeting with key players in the sugar industry in Abuja, Mr. Adedeji tasked the operators on the actualization of the nation's drive towards self-sufficiency in sugar production. He further reassured Nigerians of the availability of sugar in the country. The Ghana-Nigeria Business Council and the Ghana Investment Promotion Center have held the maiden edition of the CEO Forum in Nigeria. The first day held in Lagos, while day 2 of the event will take place in Abuja on Thursday. The program is aimed at promoting trade relations between West Africa's 2 largest economies and provide the necessary support for interested parties to set up trade in Ghana.
2 years ago, Ghanaians came to the trade fair. Last year they didn't come, but 2 years ago they came and the border was closed. And we, as Nigeria-Ghana Business Council, ensured that those goods were actually passed through the borders. So I think if the 2 countries work together, we can achieve it, especially through the business councils. because there's Ghana-Nigeria Business Council, we are Nigerian-Ghana Business Council, so we work together. There are a lot we can achieve together with the support of our various countries through the Ministries of Trade, Foreign Affairs, and the High Commissions.
When we close our borders, and when I say we, I mean governments. All governments close their borders, it affects every aspect of the economy. Aside from that, the COVID-19 too was a contributing factor. Now that it is coming down, because people are getting vaccinated and observing COVID protocols, I believe that it will pick up. And such forums like this, we need more forums like this. As it has happened in Nigeria, we expect the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce also to go to Ghana to organize similar, to educate the business people as to how to facilitate businesses in both countries.
The House of Representatives has mandated its committees on aviation, human rights and commerce to investigate the state of Nigerian airports, activities of airline operators and the coordinating agencies in the aviation sector. This is equal to a motion on the need to investigate the poor performance and high charges by airline operators in Nigeria by Representative Simon Karu. The House is concerned that Nigerians have not enjoyed domestic air travel due to constant delays and cancellation of flights with impunity and change of airline departure time, contrary to regulations of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and in contravention of international aviation standards. Lawmakers are worried that recently the burden of domestic air travelers in Nigeria has been increased by the increase in local airfares. Nigeria's stock market closed today's trading session in the green, up slightly by 0.09% on the back of telco giants MTN Nigeria and Airtel Africa. John Mekwa tells us more.
Thank you so much. Well, welcome to the stock market report. Well, the market is dipping the gains from yesterday at the close of trading on the floor of the NGX. The bull is certainly working to solidify its hold on the markets. And while the bull bellows, all major counters closed in the red. These days, it's kind of hard to predict the move of investors because even the earnings season doesn't seem to be having the much expected impact on the investors' decision. The activity chart is, however, mixed today. Unlike yesterday, it was pure red. Today, volume and value made it to the green market, but the deal still missed out on that. Top trades, mostly the figures, although MTN Nigeria found its way in there. The trio accounted for almost 90 million shares traded today in 720 deals. Is the market slowly recovering, or will profit-taking change the tide again? We'll find out in the next trading session. That's the Stock Market Report. I'm John Mekwa.
Thanks a lot, Ini. Meanwhile, let's check out the closing numbers for other major markets around the world. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Amarachi for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Taniola. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says commanders have been tasked with working out details for a deployment of battle groups to the southeastern flank in response to Russian military buildup on Ukraine's borders. The United States and NATO say Russia is still building up troops around Ukraine today. Despite Moscow's insistence, it is pulling back, questioning President Vladimir Putin's desire to negotiate a solution to the crisis. Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine's president says he hasn't seen any evidence of a supposed Russian troop withdrawal on the border of his country. Volodymyr Zelensky said he had heard many statements about troops returning to bases, but not actually seen it happening. It's after Russia's defense ministry published a video that it said showed a column of tanks and military vehicles leaving annexed Crimea across a railway bridge, adding that some troops would also return to their permanent bases. Ukrainians have raised national flags and played the country's anthem to show unity against fears of an invasion. The yellow and blue banner fluttered outside schools, hospitals and many shops to mark Unity Day, a holiday President Volodymyr Zelensky created earlier this week. There are calls for clarity over Prince Andrew's role in public life and how he will fund a financial settlement after settling the US civil sexual assault case brought by Virginia Giuffre. The Duke of York agreed to pay an undisclosed sum as part of the settlement and accepted Miss Giuffre had suffered as a victim of abuse. He made no admission of liability and has always denied the allegations. American lawyer Lisa Bloom said it was a huge victory for Miss Giuffre. Police in the US state of New York say a young girl who went missing in 2019 has been found alive in a secret room under a staircase. Paisley Schultes, now 6, was discovered in a house in the town of Sagittarius. She was found in a tiny room under a staircase. She is in good health and has now been reunited with her legal guardian and older sister. Her non-custodial parents have been charged with custodial interference and endangering the welfare of a child. Heavy rain, flooding and landslides have left at least 34 people dead in the Brazilian city of Petrópolis. The scale and force of the flooding, shown here with 2 buses surrounded by debris, washed up in one river that had seen torrential waters the day before. Video from social media showed heavy rainfall flooding streets and people surveying the damage in the city of Rio de Janeiro. One report said 259 millimetres of rain fell on the city within 6 hours, more than the monthly average for February. Canadian rescuers are still searching for survivors after a Spanish trawler carrying 24 people sank off the eastern coast of Canada. Sea rescue services from the Canadian city of Halifax found and recovered 10 bodies, though 11 of the crew are still missing. 3 surviving sailors from the trawler suffering from severe hypothermia were winched to safety from a life raft. It was not immediately clear what caused the trawler to sink. Al-Shabaab militants have attacked several police stations and security checkpoints in Somalia's capital Mogadishu, a show of force as the nation prepares for a much-delayed presidential election. State TV reported that 5 people, 2 of them children, were killed in 2 attacks, one on a police station in the Kada district and another in the Dar es Salaam district. The Al-Qaeda-linked militants carry out frequent attacks against the government and last week attacked a minibus carrying election delegates. A fuel tanker has crashed into a building in New York, triggering a massive explosion and fire. The tanker was carrying an estimated 13,000 gallons of gasoline at the time of the crash in Long Island. The driver was able to escape the vehicle and was treated for minor injuries. 3 firefighters were also treated at a local hospital. The explosion closed down part of Sunrise Highway, a major road used by commuters. And finally, a sloth in Colombia's Antioquia region found itself in a spot of danger as it climbed an electricity pole and decided to hang from live wires. Worried residents in the rural town of Terraza called on Colombian public service workers to come and save the sloth from potential electrocution. After a lengthy 20-minute rescue, the sloth was finally brought down to safety from the wires and released back into the wild. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. It's now to Ayotunde Balogun, who has more on the resumption of the Okpekpe road race.
Yes, indeed, the march of the 10-kilometer Okpekpe road race is returning to the 2022 IAAF calendar That's on Saturday, May the 28th, at Okpekpe in Isako East local government area of Edo State after a 2-year break due to the coronavirus pandemic that forced organizers to call the race off. The Deputy Governor of Edo State, Mr. Philip Shaibu, who addressed journalists at the Government House, says that the state government's ultimate plan is to achieve the gold label status in the short term and eventually the platinum label in the long run.
We agree that we have to institutionalize this race, and the process of doing that is already being put in place so that these games will live after us, including the present leadership of Pamuze. We are struggling hard and putting everything in place to make sure that we quickly get our gold label, and possibly after that our target is to be a platinum race.
Nigeria's monobob and skeleton competitor Simidele Adiagbo has lodged a formal complaint with the International Bobsleigh and Skeleton Federation alleging gender discrimination in the sports allocated to men and women at the Beijing Games. Adiagbo is protesting the exclusion from the 2022 Olympic monobob event via single spot due to an insidious and willful gender disparity in the number of sled spots made available for men and women.
For men, in the 2-man, they get 30 sleds that go to the Olympics, and in the 4-man, there's 28 sleds. On the women's side, there are 20 sleds for each discipline. So, you can do the math, you can add up the numbers, it's just not equal. And so that's the problem here. And specifically for me, I was just one spot away from qualifying, and had there been equality, I would be at the Olympics right now. And so I'm really focused on how we can just change this for future, so no other woman has to be in this spot.
Football on the home front, defending champions Aqua United this evening handed Remo Stars their first home defeat this season in match day 13 of the MPFL clash in Ikene. David Onovo got the only goal of the match in the 28th minute of the first half. Former champions Plateau United moved top of the table following a victory against 3SC of Ibadan in Jos. MFM of Lagos beat visiting Kaduna United, while Kwara United defeated Eimba. Niger Tornadoes beat Sunshine Stars, and Wiki Tourists beat Kano Pillars 2-1. In the UEFA Champions League, RB Salzburg held German giants Bayern Munich to a 1-0 draw in their first leg game in the quarter-final stage. And of course, Liverpool, the champions from 2019, beat Inter Milan at the San Siro by 2-0. Goals coming from Roberto Firmino and Mohamed Salah. And that's wrap in sports news.
Thanks, Ayatunde. And the main news again, the Minister of Education, Adamu, today said the federal government is ready to conclude its dialogue with university lecturers. The minister, who expressed surprise over ASUU's decision to embark on the strike, explained that government is still waiting for them to resolve the outstanding issues. Also today, the Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Abba Kyari, said the importation of toxic fuel, which caused the scarcity of petrol across the country, was not deliberate. He spoke during an interaction with the House Ad Hoc Committee investigating the circumstances surrounding the importation of the bad fuel into the country. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. From all of us here, it's good night.